Straight ahead on IU NewsNet, IU graduate workers may go on strike and it could have an impact on finals, as well as their future employment at IU. We'll have the latest on the war of words between the workers and the IU administration.
You'll find more than fruits, vegetables, and crafts at the outdoor farmers market. We'll tell you why security guards will be there too.
And we'll take you to an annual tradition of joy, the Color Run. Find out more about the life and death of the IU student who inspired it. IU NewsNet starts now. Welcome to IU NewsNet. I'm Audrey Hausberger. IU's graduate workers are threatening to strike right before finals. Let's join my co-anchor Jack Edwards across the studio for more. Jack?
Thanks, Audrey. IU was offered a pay raise, but the graduate workers say it's about more than pay. It's about their desire to form a union. Now, the war of words is heating up between the graduate workers and the IU administration, and it could make finals very interesting. IU NewsNet's Greta Hambrook joins us with the latest developments.
The tension is rising between the IU administration and graduate workers on IU's campus. The likelihood of a strike next Wednesday is increasing. The Indiana Graduate Workers Coalition has collected more than 850 strike pledges from graduate students and 350 neutrality pledges from faculty members. This strike would happen in the weeks before finals and could be historic. Graduate workers say the 5% stipend increase IU announced on March 28th is not enough, and they call it a diversion to distract from the real issue at hand, unionization. Graduate workers involved will vote Sunday, April 10th on whether or not to strike. Pending a majority yes vote, the strike will begin next Wednesday, April 13th. An email to all student academic appointees, the official term for graduate workers, went out yesterday, stating failure to fulfill academic job responsibilities may result in suspension, termination, and prohibition on future appointment to SAA jobs. But since that email arrived to faculty and student academic appointees, the grad worker spokesperson says support for the strike has exponentially increased.
Graduate workers don't want to strike. This is a decision that we've come to out of necessity because the university has, at all turns, ignored our calls for union recognition, and more significantly, has ignored the fact that a majority of graduate workers have signed union cards and indicated their preference for a union to represent graduate workers.
So what does a graduate worker strike mean for all students on the week before finals? On strike days, it could mean classes taught by graduate workers get canceled. They would stop all paid teaching, grading, advising, and office work in the crucial days and weeks before finals and graduation. We will keep you informed, and you can find details and updates at indianagradworkers.org. Jack, back to you.
There's some good news for anyone carrying a student loan. President Joe Biden is expected to announce an extension on the student loan moratorium. College student loans have been frozen since the start of the pandemic in March 2020. The freeze was scheduled to end May the 1st, but Biden has now extended a pause on payments until August 30th. The debts have not been accruing interest and do not have to be paid during the freeze. Students will now have the opportunity to continue saving for another 3 months.
The IU president has yet to address the record number of sexual assaults on campus since the school year began, now up to 51. More than 100 protesters upset with IU and the Jacob School of Music gathered with signs and survivor stories this week. They're upset that a music student found responsible for a sexual assault in 2016 was allowed back on campus to finish his degree after 6 years, despite 2 suspensions. The protesters are calling for the IU administration to take accountability and action for sexual assaults that occur on campus. The rate of sexual assault is rising on many campuses, and now interest in rising in self-defense classes. IU NewsNet's Lauren McLaughlin joins us here in the studio with that story. Lauren?
That's right. IU's Club Sports Federation and martial arts clubs teamed up to offer self-defense workshops in hopes of helping students feel safer on campus. Most people think this is what self-defense looks like. But for beginners, it can also look like this. 18 IU students attended a Taekwondo self-defense workshop in late March. Martial arts clubs proposed the idea to the CSF due to the high number of sexual assault cases on IU's campus this year.
So there were so many sexual assaults, specifically like in the fall when we first came up with this idea. So we decided that maybe this would be something that the IU community could use.
The event was the first of its kind from the CSF and IU's martial arts clubs, and the first of 3 workshops offered over the same weekend. Along with Taekwondo, students could learn Judo and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Students learned how to use their voice, how to kick, how to slap, and more.
Jim's going to help me demonstrate a wrist escape. It can be used for a fast getaway and uses leverage to fend off your attacker.
So, grab my wrist. I also declare, let go of me. You're not holding me because I want you to. So at this point, if I pull as you're strong and I cannot get my hand out, then I can use the force of leverage. So I step toward you and just bend my elbow this way, and it walks right out.
IU's senior Taekwondo instructor, Jim Thomas, said he got into martial arts due to struggles with bullying at school.
At this point, I feel like what I've learned, if I don't share it with people, then I'm doing a disservice to the art. And it's kind of a way of giving back. So.
Thomas has taught martial arts at IU for over 20 years. His teaching style is humorous, a method to diffuse nervousness in his students.
And if someone says, you're at risk of being really seriously hurt, how do you process that? Do you laugh it off? Do you go hide under the bed? Or?
The CSF plans to present the event again next year. Frost said she was especially impressed with the turnout on Taekwondo night.
This is kind of like the trial run for this. We wanted to see what the engagement would be, and so far I'm very impressed.
Thank you all.
For more information on IU's Taekwondo Club, you can check beinvolved.com. They welcome new members year-round. Now back to you.
Thanks, Lauren. There's extra security on hand now at a place you might not expect to find it, Bloomington's Farmers Market. The indoor farmers market you see here is now transitioning to the outdoor market, which will be at Showers Commons. The Bloomington Board of Park Commissioners approved the move to hire 2 unarmed private security officers to patrol and keep things peaceful. In past years, police security was called in to deal with challenges between some controversial vendors and members of the public over differing social and political views.
The Bloomington Police Department is really stretched thin, and so things that we kind of ask for parks, they don't necessarily have the people power to supply those officers.
The outdoor farmers market offers about 50 farm produce vendors and 11 food vendors. Now, COVID-19 numbers remain low at IU, and the university continues to relax policies. The university announced this week that COVID-19 asymptomatic testing will no longer be in person. Students and staff will now have the option for drop-off testing through IU, which means picking up a PCR saliva test kit and dropping it off on campus. The change is in large part due to positivity rates remaining low, now 1 month after the campus mask mandate was removed. There were just 10 positive cases reported among students and staff for the week of March 24th through the 30th, according to IU's COVID-19 dashboard.
The Bloomington City Council took on a tall order this week, specifically what to do with a historic but crumbling 140-foot smokestack that may be posing a safety hazard near the Beeline Trail. IU NewsNet's Molly Murphy shows us the issue.
That's right. I'm standing here at the base of the Johnson Creamery smokestack in downtown Bloomington. This smokestack has been the center of much discussion ever since the Bloomington Housing and Neighborhood Development Department declared it unsafe back in January. The department ordered that the 73-year-old structure be reduced by more than half of its original height of 140 feet to prevent it from toppling. Portions of the Beeline Trail have been temporarily redirected as a public safety precaution. The smokestack and the creamery are part of the National Register of Historic Places, which makes modifying it more difficult. A new apartment complex is set to be built on the creamery lot. Local activists are not happy that Bloomington's history could be erased to make room for new developments. I'm Molly Murphy, back to you.
Thanks, Molly. The City Council took up the issue last night and voted to lower the Johnson Creamery smokestack to 60 feet and make the area a historic district. When we come back, finding a job is difficult enough for college students, but there's another hurdle for international students who want to work in the United States after graduation. We'll explain.
Plus, a controversial speaker comes to campus and walks out after one student's question during the Q&A. Stay with us. It's exactly 1 month until this spring's commencement. But despite a robust job market, some soon-to-be graduates are worried about finding one, especially international students. IU NewsNet's Steffi Zhang explores the reasons why.
As spring flowers signal the approach of graduation, not all seniors are sure of their next big step, especially international students.
For many students, graduation is exciting and anticipated. But for some students, graduation means they officially leave campus and enter society.
International students face the transition from student status to work status, and they need to worry about their legal status in the United States. IU senior Yiting Zhang hopes to stay in the United States after graduation to work, but after attending many career fairs and sending out dozens of resumes, she's discovering it's more difficult than she expected.
Some companies, U.S. companies cannot provide work visas for international students. They tend to recruit some native students.
That's because American companies are reluctant to spend too much money on visas for international employees, which can be expensive. IU International alumna Evelyn Sun has been working in New York City for a year, and she has some advice.
Your LPT application is very important before you start your job search. So make sure you can apply your OPT right now in this month in April. I think it's a really good time to submit your OPT application.
For graduating international students, start planning early and consult the Office of International Students if you have questions. For IU NewsNet, I'm Steffi Zhang.
With stories of torture and massacre coming out of Ukraine, the Hamilton Luger School held its annual America's Role in the World conference this week. The two-day event brought in panelists from across the country to speak on international issues and foreign policy, primarily the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. Former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, William Taylor, emphasized the widespread significance of Ukraine fighting this battle alone.
They're fighting for us. They're fighting for their own freedom, the values, their identity that you talked about, freedom as that identity. But those are our values. They're fighting for us. They're fighting alone.
Other speakers at the event included Senator Dan Coates and former U.S. House Representative Lee Hamilton.
Conservative media pundit Ann Coulter visited IU last Friday to give a speech and then hold a Q&A session, but it ended abruptly. Throughout the speech, Coulter talked about her books and her overall views on the world and politics. Things got interesting whenever students came up to ask Coulter specific questions about her conservative values and beliefs. One student asked about the cross necklace around her neck, and before she could finish her question, Coulter mentioned being on a time crunch and having to catch a plane. That's where the Q&A stopped.
I'm catching a plane, if you care. Okay, you're screwing everybody along.
Well, what you're saying now is taking longer than my question.
Okay, thank you. Good night, everybody.
The Q&A did last 30 minutes after the planned time slot for the event. One of the most colorful activities on campus each year honors the life of an IU student who died tragically. The Jill Behrman Color Run took place Saturday, and I wanted to find out just who Jill was and how her family and community created joy and service as part of her legacy. With a burst of color and joy, the annual Color Run is more than an IU tradition.
Good job, guys!
It marks a commemoration. The majority of current students at IU weren't even born when Jill Behrman went missing 22 years ago.
Always talked about how her smile would light up the room, and I mean, I know a lot of people say that about other people, but she had a big smile and people looked up to her.
Jill was a freshman at Indiana when she was kidnapped and murdered after setting off on a lone bike ride on May 31st, 2000. Her mother, Marilyn, who works at the media school, knew her best.
She was just a really good person, and she worked hard, and they saw that, and they wanted to be like Jill.
In her memory, Jill's family and the recreational sports staff started what was then called the Jill Behrman Run for the End Zone race in 2003. And years later,
it became a color run, and that changed everything. The event became a lot more student-oriented than it had been in the past. It's just a really special thing to see them all coming together, having fun, rolling around in the powder. It's just a really fun event.
As runners make their way through the race route, they pass through color zones. Flying powdered color bombs come at them from all sides to celebrate not only Jill's memory, but create lasting memories of their own.
Senior year, I haven't done it before, so just trying to do everything that I haven't done in the past few years, and this is one of those things. Plus, it's for a good cause.
More than 800 people took part in the race Saturday morning, and Marilyn Behrman knows her daughter's words of wisdom to those runners would be,
as far as life, just go for it. Like, be present and do the things that make you happy.
And that's exactly what the students signed up to do.
Well, last night we were hanging out and she was like, anyone want to do it with me? And I was like, actually, I told myself I was going to say yes to more things this year, so yeah, I'll do it. She said that last night, so here we are.
From tragedy comes color, fun, and a celebration of life for Jill Behrman and her family.
She'd be really grateful that people cared, that they really cared about her and about us.
The 5K raises money for the Jill B. Emerging Leadership Scholarship, where $1,000 each is given to 2 students who display leadership, civic, duty, and responsibility on campus and in the community. A very heartwarming event and cause.
Well, if you were in the media school just after the lunch hour on Tuesday, you weren't inside for very long. Students flooded the media school stairways and evacuated outside into the rain as the fire alarm went off. Fire trucks arrived and firefighters concluded there was no smoke or fire. Someone had just pulled the fire alarm. If it was done as a prank, that's a misdemeanor. People went back inside after about 15 minutes of standing outside in the rain. Well, nothing beats an against all odds success story, and Indiana baseball has one of their own right here in Bloomington.
We've got that story plus more on IU men's basketball and the Little 500. IU NewsNet Sports is up next.
Well, March Madness is all wrapped up, so the attention turns here to spring sports right here in Bloomington. The birthday boy and IU NewsNet's Max Rezek-Te Winkle has sports for us this week.
That's right, Jack. Exciting things coming for IU's spring sports. But first, it was a bad start to the offseason for Indiana men's basketball. Hoosiers starting point guard Xavier Johnson was arrested early Sunday morning. Johnson was charged with reckless driving and resisting law enforcement after being caught speeding at 90 miles per hour down Walnut Street. Police say Johnson kept going after they attempted to pull him over. He eventually pulled into a parking lot where police say he switched seats with the passenger and claimed he was not driving. So far, still no comment from head coach Mike Woodson on disciplinary actions. But IU Athletics did release this statement on Sunday. Indiana University Athletics and the men's basketball program are aware of the charges involving Xavier Johnson. IU Athletics will continue to gather facts, cooperate with and monitor the legal process, and take further action as the evolving situation warrants. At 11-16, Indiana baseball has had an up-and-down season, to say the least. In a season of struggle, one player has stood out. From community college to best in the Big Ten, IU NewsNet's Jack Edwards has the story on Matthew Ellis.
There's been a common sound at Bart Kaufman Field this season. That's the 12th home run of the year for Matthew Ellis, good for 10th most in the nation and most in the Big Ten. His path to get here has been different than usual.
Well, we had recruited Matthew out of high school before he committed to Tennessee, but he contacted us when he decided to leave Tennessee, and obviously we welcomed him with open arms.
After redshirting his freshman year at the University of Tennessee, Ellis transferred to Walters State, a community college in Morristown, Tennessee. Making the step away from D1 was aided with good rapport with Shelton.
It was a pretty easy transition because we had built a great relationship in high school, and I liked the assistant coaches as well. So it was close and it was really convenient. And then obviously, you know, going to such a prestigious place like that was a no-doubter for me.
During his second and final year with Walters State, Ellis helped spearhead a team that won 61 of 68 games and made a run to the JUCO Division I World Series, leading the nation in hits and home runs. His biggest developments, however, came on the other end of his game.
There's probably no better to become a better receiver than, a strong junior college program, because we've usually got guys that throw really hard and sometimes don't really know where it's going. You become, you're forced to become a better receiver, or you're going to get beat up back there by 94, 95 mile an hour fastballs.
For Ellis, the transfer was a success beyond just the intangibles.
It worked out perfect. The time at Walters State was the best time of my life, and I really wouldn't trade it for the world.
For IU NewsNet, I'm Jack Edwards.
Indiana heads on the road against in-state rivals Purdue this weekend, looking to get back above 500 in the Big Ten. April is here, and the preparations for the 2022 Little 500 race are in full swing. The Missing Out race took place last weekend throughout the day on Saturday. With slight rain as the riders came through for the finals of the men's and women's race, a crash in the first lap of the women's finals played a role in the final results. Grace Williams of Melanzana Cycling took first place in the women's field, while Jimmy Kulik took first place in the men's field. Spring Series wraps up this weekend with Team Pursuit on Saturday. Team Pursuit is coming up this weekend, marking the end of the Spring Series. After that, the fans return to Bill Armstrong Stadium for the first time in 3 years for the Little 500 race. That does it for sports. Audrey, back to you.
Max, don't go anywhere because we have a nice story for pet lovers before we say goodbye. Students had the opportunity to give back to a good cause right here in Bloomington. 2 IU students held a tabling event inside the SPIA building to create pet toys for Bloomington Animal Care and Control. They called it Positivity. They said in the midst of the pandemic, animal shelters are filling up and needing more help than ever. So they upcycled unused t-shirts to make into braided toys for the furry friends at the local shelter.
All these dog toys go to the animal shelter, which is a really great cause, especially coming out of COVID. A lot of animal shelters are struggling for resources and volunteers. So this is a really great way for the O'Neill School to get involved.
Perfection wasn't necessary, but we're sure the pets looking for a home will enjoy their new toys, made with love by IU students. And on that happy story, that's it for IU NewsNet for now. We have a behind-the-scenes student production team in the control room and working in the studio for this broadcast. We thank them, and we thank you for watching. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at IU NewsNet. For my co-anchor Jack Edwards, I'm Audrey Hausberger. Take care, and we'll see you next week.